So it is my honor and privilege to welcome David to our office today. Thank you so much, David, for being with us in our office in Bangalore today.
It's a real honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. For all of us watching this video or show, it's really difficult for me to do justice to introducing David. He has done so much in the last few decades of his life. Probably all of us will take a few births to achieve that. So it's David the physician, David the CEO, David as a senior government official. He's played all these roles, which is truly incredible. In his last role, David was the Secretary of Veteran Affairs in the Trump administration. Before that, the Under Secretary of Health in another administration, which is quite admirable. Run a healthcare system in New York, the Beth Israel system, if I'm right, as the CEO, President and CEO. Was the Chief Medical Officer of the Pennsylvania Hospital, right? And done many more things before that. I'll probably let you speak more about that. So it's truly great to have David talking to us about healthcare today. Once again, thank you and welcome to Indegene.
No, thank you. Thank you. It's a real honor to be here at Indegene. I think the fact that Indegene has as its goal and mission to improve the way that people can get pharmaceuticals and access to healthcare, I think is really the right type of model. So it's really good work that you're doing here.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Before we get into healthcare, let me ask you about your experience of visiting India. I believe this is the first time you're visiting India. Tell us about how the last few days have been, the things which you loved, the things which shocked you.
Well, I've just been here a few days because we're in the middle of my trip.
I think those are enough days to shock you in India.
Yeah, there's a lot of people here, that's for sure, and learning how the system works is really very, very interesting. But it's a amazing country. The people are so friendly. Everyone wants to be helpful to people, and watching how people are coexisting from all different levels of life and, economic disparities. I think it really is a really unique place that has just tremendous opportunity to not only do great things here, but contribute to the rest of the world.
Excellent. How was the Taj Mahal?
Taj Mahal was an amazing experience, just incredible. It was very crowded, but everybody you could see was in awe of being able to be there. It was just such a great thing to be able to see in person. Having
seen the traffic over here in Bangalore, would you venture driving?
I don't think I would like to drive. No. I think it's, we have traffic in the United States, but what's different is we don't have as many people weaving in and out. And certainly, I think people use their horns here more than they do in the United States. There's a lot of noise.
That's non-verbal communication.
Non-verbal, right. Exactly.
Excellent. So, David, let me actually continue the conversation we were having over lunch, right? And what we want to do is talk to you about the future of healthcare.
Yeah.
But before moving to the future of healthcare, I think it might be worthwhile to just talk about the past, right, of how things evolved. And at least my personal take is that regulatory frameworks and incentives play a very significant role in healthcare. And United States over the last 15 years or so has very systematically done a bunch of things on the regulation and incentive front. So could you talk us through about what are the main regulations and change incentives which played out? How did they change the healthcare system? We spoke about the HIT Act, the Affordable Care Act. How did they build? And what are the learnings for the good, bad things which you all learned from this whole experience for any other country which is trying to modernize healthcare?
Well, that's a big question that you asked, and there's a lot in there. So let me just start by saying that any time that any part of the economy changes, it usually changes not from within itself, but by outside forces or influences. And that can happen either because consumers speak loudly in what they want to purchase with their money. It can happen because of government regulation, or it could happen because of competition from outside forces. And healthcare has been slower to change because it doesn't have the same types of competitive forces that other industries have. It doesn't have a consumer that directly pays for its product because most people in the United States have some type of insurance, either private insurance or government insurance that pays for the product. It doesn't have the same exact competitive forces because healthcare tends to be dominated by people who have certain licenses to practice, so it can't be open.
Yeah.
You know, you just can't have somebody come and say, I'm going to start practicing medicine without having...
Rightfully so.
Right. So it's been slower to change. And part of that slowness to change has been, it's been slower to adopt technology, and it's been slower to adopt some of the digital tools that we've seen in many other parts of the economy, like banking and commercial shopping and other things. The interesting thing is that the pandemic with COVID changed that in many ways and accelerated the adoption of technology and digital tools out of necessity.
Sure.
So I think that's one of the things. Government, as you said, has also, since in the United States more than half of healthcare is paid for by the government, has gotten much more active in mandating and putting into law some of the things that we're now seeing, so that they've created law and incentives on how to record the medical information in electronic health records, and now they're using standards for data to be able to get access to that information so that you can begin to start purchasing healthcare the way you would with another product, which is understanding what it costs and understanding what value or outcome you're getting from purchasing something. And that's how people make smarter decisions on how to buy. So we are seeing it's taking a long time, but we're seeing a deliberate march and progress towards changing the way that healthcare adopts technology and the way that we buy and purchase healthcare.
Sure. And this was, I'm assuming, in the 2014, right, if I'm not wrong, or the Affordable Care Act, when...
2009 was when the Affordable Care Act first got introduced. It has now survived over a decade, 13 years. And even with many of the challenges of having a Republican administration, because it was put in place by President Obama, a Democratic administration, it has not only survived, but it's actually now been sustained and enhanced. And so I think it's going to be around for a long time.
Sure. So one of the things you spoke about, access and more transparency in insurance products, which obviously makes tremendous sense, and insurance drives a lot of stuff in healthcare in the United States. But one of the things we see as a company, and I can see it to the point that the plethora of data sets have emerged over the last decade in healthcare, right?
Yes.
Which offer tremendous opportunity for all stakeholders to really leverage technology, AI, and stuff like that to drive efficiency. But the way the data sets have emerged in the United States, I don't think any other country that level of data exists. So what are the enabling regulations or incentives which drove that, in your opinion?
Well, in the United States government, a lot of these standards come out of what's called the Office of the National Coordinator, which is an office in the Department of Health and Human Services. And they have established data standards that allow for this data now to begin to be in a format where it's shared. And so what you're seeing is it's getting easier to be able to get your data from one healthcare provider to another. In fact, the Department of Veteran Affairs that I led was the first to do this. We had a program called the Blue Button, which allowed a veteran to get own their own data and to be able to move that data to any doctor or hospital that they wanted. And the rest of the government now models its data standards after the Department of Veteran Affairs. Having said that, while that's a big deal, that's a big advance, you still have to understand that healthcare data in the United States and elsewhere around the world remains very siloed. There's pharmaceutical data that patients don't have access to. There's behavioral data that patients don't have access to that's different than physical medicine data. And then there's a whole set of data on what we call the social determinants about a person's economic status, how they can get transportation, what food sources they have that, again, people don't have access to.
Plays a big role, of course.
Plays a huge role. The biggest predictor of mortality, of whether you live or die in the United States, is your zip code. It has nothing to do with your disease state. It's where you live, which is really a measure of how much economic goods and availability you have to be able to pay for things.
Interesting. Makes sort of sense.